Welcome. It is Verdict with Senator Ted Cruz, Ben Ferguson with you. And Senator, we are going to get back to more of what we normally do on this show today after this incredibly sad but inspiring last week, especially as you and I have come back from the funeral of Charlie Kirk. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about is a very interesting book launch. And man, is she just throwing her colleagues under the bus. Kamala Harris going scorched earth, but then trying to take some of it back in the interviews. It's really bad PR.
Well, I think Kamala Harris has decided she needs a new pair of shoes, so she wants to sell books, to sell a lot of books. And so she's come out with her book. And in the book, she admits that she didn't pick Pete Buttigieg as VP. Why? Because he's gay. And she didn't pick Josh Shapiro as VP. Why? Because he's Jewish. And then she's proceeded to say, no big deal. Just the Democrat Party is no gays need apply. No Jews need to apply, but remember, we're the party of tolerance and inclusion. We're going to break that down, tell you exactly what she said. And finally, Jimmy Kimmel is back on ABC, at least for a minute or two. I don't know how long this will last, but he is back on. We're going to talk about that, what it means for ABC, what it means for America, what it means for free speech, all of that on today's Verdict.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I want to talk to you real quick about the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews and something that is coming up that's really important that I want you to be involved in. It was nearly 2 years ago that the terrorists murdered more than 1,200 innocent Israelis, and then they took 250 hostages. Many of them they've killed. Today, it seems as if the cries of the dead and the dying have been drowned out by the shouts of anti-Semitic hatred. And the most brutal attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, by many now, has just been forgotten. Yet as the world looks away, a light shines in the darkness. And it is a movement of love and support for the people of Israel that we want you to be a part of. It's called Flags of Fellowship. And it's organized by the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Now, this is the best part. On October the 5th, just a few weeks away, millions across America will prayerfully plant an Israeli flag in honor and solidarity with the victims of October the 7th, 2023. And their grieving families as well. And you can be a part of this movement this day also. You can get your church involved as well. All you have to do is get more information, and you can join the Flags of Fellowship movement by visiting Fellowship Online. Just go to ifcj.org. And again, you can get all the information on how to join the Flags of Fellowship movement. You can also find out how to get your church involved. That's ifcj.org. That's ifcj.org. All right, so Kamala put out this book, and the name of the book is really funny. It's the number of days that her campaign was. Obviously, when Joe Biden was forced after that first debate to get out, Kamala Harris was the obvious pick for multiple reasons, including it was the easiest way to keep the money rolling from the presidential campaign of Joe Biden. But she's now basically saying, I'm a brilliant candidate. Everybody else was bad, and no one helped me the way they should have. And she's like angry at the entire Democratic Party and also at Joe Biden and his family.
Well, she's got a lot of anger, but I will admit that there's actually at least a moment or two of honesty and candor in this book. And the honesty and candor is just how intolerant and judgmental and hateful the Democrat Party has been.
That
so
can't
she
be
writes
true.
in the
Hold
book
on, they're the
that,
party of tolerance. They've been saying it for years.
Well, here's what she wrote. She said that her first choice to be VP was her close friend, Pete Buttigieg. But she decided that it would be, quote, too big of a risk for a black woman to run with a gay man. And she says Buttigieg, quote, would have been an ideal partner if I were a straight white man. But we were already asking a lot of America to accept a woman, a black woman married to a Jewish man. Part of me wanted to say, screw it, let's just do it. But knowing what's at stake, it was too big a risk. Now, let me start by saying, listen, Democrats are at their core racist. They are at their core deeply bigoted. So her view of it, by the way, she didn't lose in Kamala's world because the Democrats' agenda for 4 years under Biden and Kamala was a train wreck. It was a disaster. She didn't lose because of open borders and 12 million illegals coming into this country. She didn't lose because of Americans being murdered and raped and children being assaulted by illegals they'd released. She didn't lose because of out-of-control inflation, making it harder for working Americans to buy groceries and pay their bills. She didn't lose because on the international stage they'd screwed everything up and went from peace and prosperity to 2 simultaneous wars. She didn't lose because of anti-Semitic protests on college campuses that Democrats did nothing about. No. In Kamala's world, she lost because, I'm going to go back to her quote, "We were already asking a lot of America to accept a woman," because clearly that's why she lost in Kamala's world, because she's a woman. A black woman. Clearly, that's even more why she lost in Kamala's world. A black woman married to a Jewish man. I'm sorry, is there a single voter on planet Earth who voted against Kamala because she's a black woman married to a Jewish man? Well, actually, the answer may be yes, but that would be a Democrat who is anti-Semitic and can't stand that she was married to a Jewish man. But that was her world, is she said, well, because everyone's racist, like we in the Democrat Party are, I can't pick Pete. And she says Pete would be an ideal partner. That's who she wanted to pick. And the singular reason she did not is he was gay. If he were straight, she doesn't explicitly says it, but she pretty clearly suggests he would have been her pick. And she's quite open about saying, nope, for her, being gay was disqualifying.
Yeah, I want to play this, and there's 2 versions of it. I want to play the longer version because Kamala went on the biggest, TV show to sell a book if you're a Democrat, Rachel Maddow on MSNBC. And Rachel is, for people that don't know, she's openly gay. She was not happy with Kamala and had the book there and was clearly wanting to take her to task. I want you to listen to this back and forth and how awkward it got.
Let me ask you a politics question. I mentioned in the intro tonight that you say in the book really bluntly that your personal first choice for your running mate would have been Pete Buttigieg, and you praise him effusively. You say he would have been an ideal partner if I were a straight man. And you say effectively that demographically it was too much to ask of the American people to ask them to elect you with him as your running mate. I wonder if his reaction to that, since this part of the book has come out, if you've had any reflection on that, or I guess I'd ask you to just elaborate on that a little bit. It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
With you running as, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president. To say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively because he was gay, it's hard to hear.
No. That's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for president of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor, to be a black woman running for president of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk. No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but
that
we had such a short period of time, and the stakes were so high. I think Pete is a phenomenal public servant. And I think America is and would be ready for that. But when I had to make that decision with 2 weeks to go, and maybe I was being too cautious, I'll let our friends, we should all talk about that. Maybe I was. But that's the decision I made, and I, as with everything else in the book, I'm being very candid about that.
Yeah.
with a great deal of sadness about also the fact that it might have been a risk.
So in other words, I'm not racist or bigoted. You are, so I couldn't do what I wanted to do because you're racist. And by the way, this would be among Democrats. She's literally saying to Democrats, y'all couldn't handle a gay man.
Yeah, and if you listen to what she said to Rachel Maddow, and let's be clear, Rachel Maddow was pissed.
Yes.
She was clearly pissed. She was trying to restrain herself, but she was really unhappy. And you listen, actually, Kamala interrupts Rachel Maddow and says, quote, no, that's not what I said. That he couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. Ben, that is exactly what she said.
Yep, it's in the book.
She said if he weren't gay,
book,
he'd be on the ticket. So she said, I didn't say that he couldn't be on the ticket because he's gay. I just decided he couldn't be on the ticket because he's gay. and so her answer is, it's not me. It's just the voters are so prejudiced that I decided to exclude him. But the amazing thing is, that's not the only vice presidential candidate that she excluded again for prejudice. And so she admits the very same thing about Josh Shapiro.
Yep.
And Josh Shapiro, look, you and I talked about this on the podcast. If you were a Democrat and you wanted the Democrats to win, look, obviously you didn't want that, I didn't want that. But if you wanted the Democrats to win, Josh Shapiro was the obvious choice. He was a popular governor in Pennsylvania, the single most important and largest swing state in the country. And Harris wrote that she had 3 finalists: Shapiro, Tim Walz, who she picked, and Arizona Senator Mark Kelly. And she interviewed them one by one in her vice presidential residence, the Naval Observatory, on August 4th, 2024. 2 days later, she announced the selection of Walz. Shapiro was apparently the first of the 3 she interviewed. And she writes, quote, at one point, he, Shapiro, mused that he would want to be in the room for every decision. I told him bluntly that was an unrealistic expectation. A vice president is not a co-president. I had a nagging concern that he would be unable to settle for a role as number 2 and that it would wear on our partnership. I had to be able to completely trust the person in that role. Every day as president, I said, I'll have 99 problems, and my VP can't be one. But then she went on to say that the real reason she didn't pick Shapiro is that he's Jewish. And here's what she writes in her book. I know it's a shocker. It's surprising.
Right,
Here's what
it's
she
like,
writes.
yeah, there's bigots in the Democratic Party. Never saw that coming. Keep going. I'm ready.
Quote, we talked about how to handle the attacks he'd confronted on Gaza and what effect it might have on the enthusiasm we were trying to build. Big protests at the convention were a major concern. Now, understand what she's saying there. Number one, she was worried if I pick a Jew, the problem will be what effect it might have on the enthusiasm we were trying to build. Democrats would be furious. How dare you pick a Jewish person as your VP? But then the next thing she wrote is even more astonishing. Big protests at the convention were a major concern. But by the way, who would be protesting? It's not right-wingers. It's not the Klan. She was worried that left-wing pro-Hamas sympathizers would protest at the convention. And you know what? They would have. The fundamental problem is the pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party has taken over the party. And you and I said at the time, the reason she did not pick Josh Shapiro is the pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party now has a veto, and they vetoed Shapiro because he is Jewish. That's what she admits. She also says that she and Shapiro discussed an opinion piece he had written as a 20-year-old in which he said that the people in Palestine, quote, are too battle-minded to be able to establish a peaceful homeland of their own. And to be clear, Shapiro has since run away from that and has embraced a two-state solution. And by the way, his stated positions on Israel are the same as hers. which is they are all in against the government of Israel, but nonetheless, she is unequivocal. Shapiro was vetoed because he's Jewish, and Buttigieg was vetoed because he's gay, and that is her own confession written in her own book.
So here's my question then. Who does qualify to be president? Because the white guy, I guess, is kind of acceptable. I should say VP, but not if you're gay or if you're Jewish. So is it just like it's just only people that either don't look like her or only people that are just straight white guys? I'm really confused now in the new party of the Democratic. Like, who is an appropriate candidate? That's what I want to know.
Well, look, and she managed to find the weirdest white guy she could, Tim Walz. And there's an irony, because until she picked him as VP, the only thing people knew about Tim Walz is that he said Republicans were weird. That was sort of his breakthrough moment where he said they're weird. And then suddenly he gets on the national stage and everyone's like, holy cow, this guy, you know, like the nickname he got of Jazz Hands. Like, I don't get how he like waves. But you know who he reminded me of?
Who is that?
Will Ferrell on Saturday Night Live when he played the cheerleader with Sherry O'Terry.
Yeah.
I mean that is Tim Walz.
Yes.
And gosh, I almost wish he'd been on the national stage for longer than 22 seconds, because if they could have brought Will Ferrell back to reprise him, he could have done the most spectacular Tim Walz. But the problem is they'd never do it. They'd probably bring in, I don't know, Brad Pitt to play him instead, because, you know, Saturday Night Live is all about lionizing the left and attacking the right. But if they were being honest, Will Ferrell could have done a spectacular Tim Walz.
All of you know that I am a pro Second Amendment guy. I've shared on numerous occasions how carrying my firearms saved my life from a gang-related attack. But for those of you out there with family members who may not be comfortable having a gun by their side, you still want them to be able to protect themselves and others in times of danger. And that's where the Byrna launcher comes in. Byrna is a handheld pistol that fires both kinetic rounds and chemical irritants to separate you from an attacker. Byrna is a handheld pistol that fires both kinetic rounds and chemical irritants to separate you from the attacker. I'm here today with Josh Shapiro from Byrna to share the true story of how a California homeowner used a Byrna launcher to stop a home intruder. Josh, tell us what happened.
You know, Bob Brayton was one of the earliest adopters of Byrna back when we first started. He lived in California in a residential suburb of L.A. that was pretty prone to a lot of vagrancy, a lot of homeless walking up and down the street. He kept a Byrna in his living room, and one of these vagrants wandered in his home, just confused, probably drunk and intoxicated, in the wrong house. Bob was able to pull his Byrna out, point it at the intruder, who promptly backed out of the home, back into the yard, and of course it was all caught on surveillance. He didn't even have to use the Byrna, and he was able to ward off this intruder in a situation that could have ended incredibly badly had more force been used. This is a great demonstration of how the lowest level of force can be used to rectify a situation. And, of course, it was all caught on video, which it makes for a great illustration of how that Byrna can be used on a day-to-day basis.
There's a lot of people who are going to say, well, why wouldn't the homeowner just use a gun in this case?
Yeah, well, one, it comes down to legality. You know, in this part of California, it may be very difficult to use a gun. And then, two, we saw this intruder literally just stumbled into the wrong home in an altered state of mind. Nobody wants to kill anybody that doesn't need killing, that they absolutely don't have to. So this is a great instance where the Byrna was able to be used, the lowest level of less lethal force is able to use to rectify the situation without bringing a gun into that situation.
Yeah, I tell you, I have one of these. My family members do as well. A lot of my friends. If you want more information on how you or a family member can protect themselves with a Byrna launcher, go to Byrna, BYRNA.com. That's Byrna.com, BYRNA.com. Again, protect yourself and your family. Byrna, BYRNA.com. Final question on this. I actually kind of expected this from Kamala. There's one consistency with her. It's never going to be her fault, anything. You know, she had a really hard time in the White House keeping staff that was well documented. A lot of the staff felt like she just chastised them and berated them. A lot of them quit early on. There was not like a big tenured staff there either. And now it's not her fault. The American people didn't reject her before Iowa when she was running for president and had polling at like 1 or 2%. And then they're like, well, it's not my fault that I didn't win. It's their fault that I didn't win. And they didn't do it right. And she also trashed the guy who made her into even having a chance at the White House, and Joe Biden, and trash Joe Biden's family as well. I think you're going to see probably some pushback from them in the near future, because this book was not flattering of Joe Biden, who really, without Joe Biden, she wouldn't have even gotten to write this book.
Well, look, Joe Biden, I mean, let's be honest. He can't stand Kamala Harris, and he has never been able to stand Kamala Harris. If you remember the 2020 presidential primary, Kamala lit into him and basically called him a bigoted Klansman. Yeah. In fact, her signature breakout moment was when she was talking about little girls, little African-American girls being left behind in segregated schools and busing. She said, I was that little girl. And it was a, tear down this old white bigot moment. Now it failed. And she ended up getting, I think, effectively 0 votes in the Democrat primary. I don't know, maybe she got more than 0 votes, but she got 0 delegates. She dropped out before Iowa. But Biden trapped himself. Yeah, so do you know why Kamala was Biden's VP?
I think he had no choice. She was going after him, saying he's a racist old white guy, and they're like, all right, how do we shut her up?
No.
Okay, so that's wrong.
I don't believe that is.
All right, I'm intrigued now. I'm ready.
Okay. So I have a theory. I can't prove this, but I feel pretty good about my theory. So Biden had initially promised that he would pick a woman as VP. And listen, I went back to the Democrats. They are bean counters. Nobody is an individual. You are not a human being in their book. You are a white male Southerner conservative. You don't even exist.
Yeah.
But everyone falls into a category. And so Ketanji Brown Jackson, Joe Biden promised, I'm going to nominate a black woman to the court. Ketanji becomes Justice Jackson. Biden early on promised, I'm going to nominate a woman as VP. And it's the everyone is their characteristic rather than who they are and what they say and what they believe. I believe personally that Biden intended to pick Amy Klobuchar. I think that when he said that was in his mind. He likes Amy. They get along. And then what happened that messed up his plan is George Floyd was killed. And we saw the country erupt in violence. We saw riots, violent riots in cities all across the country, Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots. We saw police cars being firebombed. And suddenly it changed the dynamics of a Democrat primary. So he was heading to be the nominee. Maybe he was the nominee. I forget the exact timeline. But he was the nominee. And the realities of Democrat primary politics meant suddenly it didn't just have to be a woman. It had to be an African-American woman.
Yep.
And he was suddenly stuck. So if you look at the category of senators or governors who are African-American women, there was precisely one, Kamala Harris. He could choose others. He could have chosen, there are a couple of House members that he could have chosen. There are a couple of mayors that he could have chosen. But Joe Biden is a man of the Senate. He spent 40 years in the Senate. I think it was just Biden was incapable of picking what he would view as a lowly House member, a lowly mayor. It just did. That was not in his range. And he suddenly was backed into it must be a woman, and because of George Floyd, now it must be an African-American woman. And there was only one choice, and that was Kamala Harris. And boom, he named Kamala. But I think Biden, to this day, can't stand her. And I think she, to this day, can't stand him.
Yeah.
And by the way, she was
the First
fully
Lady really couldn't stand her from the very beginning. Apparently, from internal reporting, she did not want Joe Biden to pick her. Didn't like her, didn't trust her, didn't want her to be the VP.
But he trapped her. Like what other choice did he have when he said it was going to be a woman? Do you agree with me that as a matter of Democrat politics after George Floyd, it had to be an African American?
I mean, I think they pander so much in their world, yes. And I think, like you said, it had to be a woman. And if you look at that list, who's on that list that's at that level? And I also think
it's literally a set of one. It's literally a set of one. What, he could have picked Karen Bass, now the mayor of Los Angeles, who was this, Marxist, Fidel Castro loving House member. Like Biden was not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so he was stuck. But let's be clear, when Biden cratered, so for most of the Biden presidency, the president froze Kamala out of everything. They couldn't stand her. She was screwing up. She was losing staff. She every time she did an interview, she messed it up. And so they just froze her out. And so then when Biden had his disastrous debate with Trump, look, it was Kamala who was quite eager. She let others actually plunge the knife in. It was Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and others that finished the job of et tu, Brute and stabbed Biden in the back and took him out. Although, to be clear, and longtime listeners of Verdict will remember this, Ben, you and I did a special podcast the night of that debate.
Yep.
Where we predicted that night. We said
that was the end of Joe.
Will go down as the most consequential debate in presidential history. Why? Because this debate changed the names that will be on the ballot in November. And we predicted that night, within an hour of the debate, Joe Biden will not be on the ballot in November because of this debate. By the way, we'd been predicting for a year that the Democrats would pull Biden, and a bunch of the corporate media had been mocking us, and to be clear, me in particular, for saying that. And, of course, that prediction proved right. But Kamala, the bad blood between them is real and it's significant, so she's evening a score there. But it is amazing how she can readily admit she excluded Shapiro because he's Jewish and Buttigieg because he's gay, and yet she can nonetheless feel self-righteous that theirs is the party of inclusion, and it's the Republicans that are intolerant and hateful, and it's just false.
All right, I want to pivot real quick to something that just truly is hysterical, and that is ABC News. We thought they had actually done the right thing, and were willing to say that it's no, Jimmy Kimmel, you're not going to go out there and lie about who assassinated and what they believed in of Charlie Kirk. We now know that the sin for doing that, for that crime, is a sentence of going on a vacation for about 6 days, so less than a week. And ABC News is like, all right, we started back up on Tuesday night. Now, here's the other interesting thing. Not everybody's going along with this. Nexstar and Sinclair are saying no, they're not going to be airing it. They want a real apology for him before they think about putting him back on the air. Your reaction to that?
Well, you and I are recording this show Tuesday night, and as we're recording it, Kimmel has not yet gone on air. So I don't know what he's going to say. He might do all sorts of things. He might stand up and give a heartfelt apology. He might admit that in his last show, he told a lie. He engaged in active disinformation. His sort of joke, which wasn't remotely funny, was that the murderer of Charlie Kirk was a right-wing MAGA guy. Now, that's a lie, and it's a lie with consequence. I mean, we've seen the polling that shows a majority of Democrats believe Charlie Kirk's killer was a right-winger. Now, that is a brazen lie. Charlie Kirk's killer was radicalized. He was a leftist. Law enforcement has said this over and over again. He was living with his boyfriend, who was a transgender, who was a furry, who was a man transitioning to be a woman. The killer engraved Antifa and transgender slogans on the casings that he used for the assassination. So there's no ambiguity. This is a man of the left. And so maybe, just maybe, and I may be holding out hope, Kimmel stands up and gives a heartfelt apology, says, I'm sorry, and what happened to Charlie Kirk was horrific. It was a political assassination. It is wrong. And it's clear this was not some right-winger who did this. This was a leftist. This is my side of the aisle. This is Jimmy Kimmel speaking, and I'm sorry. If that happens, I think the odds are very, very high. You and I, almost regardless of what happens, are going to be talking about this on Friday's pod. So on Friday, we'll know what he said. We don't know what he said right now. I think that's unlikely. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I think it's unlikely that Kimmel, he may give a half-hearted apology. He may say, I'm sorry, some people were offended. Maybe. I actually think he's more likely to be defiant and say, to hell with you, everyone who was offended by the lies that I told. But we'll see. What I will say, look, my view on Kimmel, I think he is profoundly unfunny. He hasn't been funny in years. There was a long time ago when he could be a comedian 1,000 years ago, but then partisanship and hate overcame him, and his show consists of just relentlessly screaming, I hate Donald Trump, I hate Donald Trump, I hate conservatives, I hate Republicans. By the way, frequently I hate Ted Cruz. Ever since I beat him at basketball, I've lived rent-free in his head. And the problem is, listen, as a Republican, I'm actually fine with comedy that is roasting Republicans and Democrats. I think good comedy makes fun of everyone. Actually, today I retweeted. So Jon Stewart did a whole riff on The Daily Show, blasting me. And it was funny as hell. He actually played a clip from our last verdict where I talked about Kimmel and I did an impression of a Godfather. Actually, I'll tell you what. Let's play Jon Stewart, because this is actually comedy. Listen, I don't agree with Jon Stewart's politics, but Stewart is actually funny. I mean, he makes me laugh. And so let's play the clip. I'm going to play a clip. This is making fun of me, but to all our verdict listeners, this is me playing Jon Stewart, just mocking me. And he does a very good job. He's a talented comedian. I'm perfectly fine with comedians who mock me, as long as that's not all they do. As long as they don't just scream, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, but they're actually funny. So here was Jon Stewart on The Daily Show talking about, he's going to quote verdict, and then he's just going to mercilessly mock me. Give a listen.
Now, Cruz has supported this president through insults to his own wife's looks and to his own father's loyalties. And yet Cruz still manages to maintain a modicum of self-respect when it comes to this president trampling all over our Constitution. Sir, it brings me no pleasure to have to play this.
Look, I like Brendan Carr. He's a good guy. He's the chairman of the FCC. I work closely with him. But what he said there is dangerous as hell.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Senator Ted Cruz boldly stating that the FCC chairman threatening the licenses of networks is dangerous. And Senator Cruz, I would just say, maybe you should stop there. I would stop there. I would not continue with the thought. Perfect. No notes. All right, go on.
And I got to say, he threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
What sort of the hard way? Oh, what kind of mobster have you ever heard? We can do this the hard way. We can do it the easy way, the hard way. Easy or hard? That's not the Godfather. That's Lenny from Mice and Men. The bunny. The bunny can do it the easy, the hard way. You got more, Senator, don't you?
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
That's not a Goodfellas quote. I know this because all of my decorative pillows have Goodfellas quotes on them. I mean, I would go home, I would say, that's me at home. Look at me. Now, Senator, a lesser man might tell you to go home and get your shine box, but I don't, because you wouldn't even know what that means. Ted Cruz, I mean, to do that with Goodfellas, with that accent, is there anything in pop culture that I love that you can't ruin?
Dad, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat animals. But Lisa, animals are so delicious. There's the animal we get bacon from, the animal we get ham from, the animal we get sausage from. Dad, that's all the same animal. Smithers, release the hounds. Excellent.
They're not booing, they're saying boo earns. Imagine having to endure a Texas power outage with this guy. Who wants to hear my Apu? Anyone? Well, he ruined my love of The Simpsons. At least I've still got my favorite franchise, Star Wars, all to myself, so I don't have to.
The Force is strong with this one. There is no try. Do or do not.
At best, he sounds like Yoda with a sinus infection, trying not to come. Do or do? You may enjoy Star Wars, Ted Cruz, but there's one thing we'll never have in common, and that's my comfort movie, The Princess Bride, a fantastical tale of adventure and true love, with an outstanding cast. And, oh, you know what's coming! You know what's coming! With an outstanding cast, including the inimitable... Oh, it, just roll it.
So, what is it you have that's so worth living for? Presses on his chest, and Wesley goes, true love. Liar! Shut up, witch! I'm not a witch, I'm your wife, but after what you just said, I wish I wasn't. Don't say that name. What? Humperdinck? Humperdinck, Humperdinck, Humperdinck. I can't hear you! So.
Wow, that was a straight... I'm like, that was a one-man show.
Do you know how hard it is to make Mario Lopez uncomfortable? Truly. Mario Lopez. The man who, need I remind you, did this dance in a tank tee in front of everyone at the Max.
All right, I gotta say I'm laughing a little bit because it is pretty good roast, I'm not gonna lie.
Look, Ben, that's hysterical.
Yeah.
I do like to do impressions. I'm not particularly great at them, but I have fun and I like pop culture. But, like, that's actual comedy. Like, I'm going to make a prediction right now. What Jon Stewart just did there is 100,000 times funnier than whatever Jimmy Kimmel will do tonight. So we'll see what he does. But, look, the point that I made in this podcast is the federal government, the FCC, should not be threatening the licenses of ABC in order to force them to take someone off the air, even someone incredibly unfunny with terrible ratings who gets 1.1 million views, which means he gets fewer views and listens than Verdict does. We beat Jimmy Kimmel regularly. And someone who was actively lying about a political assassination. I think all of those are reasons for ABC to fire him, but I don't think the federal government should be forcing ABC to fire him. Why? Because, look, when Biden was president, the Biden FCC tried to yank Fox News' license. And I led the fight against it. We beat them. We stopped them from doing it. You know what? If we embrace the FCC stripping licenses from anyone who says something you disagree with, the next Democrat president who gets in the White House will do this and will come after everyone right of center. And so that is a slippery slope to oblivion. But at the same time, understand, just because I'm saying the federal government shouldn't force Kimmel off the air, I think market forces should. And it's interesting that 66 ABC stations did not carry the Kimmel program tonight. And if there are enough market forces, ABC ultimately will respond to them. I think market forces are a great check for horrific, unfunny, partisan, dishonest speech. And by the way, if you're dishonest enough, there could also be legal liability and litigation and all sorts of consequences that come when you lie on air. I just don't think it should be government regulators saying, we don't agree with the politics of your speech, so we're taking your license. But that being said, the world is better off without an unfunny, dishonest, left-wing partisan who lies to the American people. And sadly, there was a time when Jimmy Kimmel could be funny, but that's what he has become.
Yeah, great point. Don't forget, we do this show Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Hit that subscribe or auto-download button wherever you listen. You can also tell Siri or Alexa, hey, play Verdict with Ted Cruz, and it will do it automatically for you. So make sure that you listen wherever you can on demand, whenever you want to. And we will see you back here in a couple of days.